All right, officially welcome to our July 2025 Sustainability Commission meeting. Start with some roll call. Kristen Keenan present. Ned Dorff,
Present.
Alder Presley,
Here.
Julia Nordike, present. Jenny Brinker,
Present.
Amy Cox is excused. Mark Walter,
Present.
Daniela is not present as far as we can tell. And Corey Mim.
Present.
Excellent. Thank you. First item on our agenda is to approve our agenda. And as was pointed out when we came in, we have a lot on our agenda today. So as we consider whether to approve the agenda, let's also remember to stay on the agenda as approved. So I'll do my best to help us pace as we move forward. So with that, I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. Walter second? Yes. Next up, all in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, our aggressive agenda is approved. Next up, it would be approval of our minutes from the June 19th meeting. Do we have any motions to that effect?
To approve.
Thank you, Alderman Presley. Any seconds? I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from June's meeting?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Approved. And next up, in the interest of staying on task, we have Selena Darrow of Rooted in Inc. To talk to us about the current landscape of food waste and recovery in Greater Green Bay. Would you like any further introduction, or would you like to take care of that yourself?
I can take it from there. So I'm Selena Darrow, born and raised in Green Bay. I am the founder and executive director of the nonprofit Rooted In. I was called to start this nonprofit organization 2 years ago. It was born out of volunteer service in our community. So I have a long 30-year culinary career in pretty much every segment of the food service industry. And started a consulting company a couple of years ago and built in service into that business model. And just felt called to start Rooted In. 2 years ago, I didn't really know exactly what this nonprofit would be. But the mission we have today is the mission from my heart. It's to build a community table that nourishes and uplifts, and we bring access to local nutritious foods as a tool to transform health and well-being. And part of our work is focused on food insecurity and food waste. So go ahead.
I'm gonna put your slides up on the big screen so the people in the room can see it. And then need to share the screen as well. And Ned, if you could just tell me, I'm just don't know why I'm picking on Ned.
Yeah.
You can see the presentation.
I can see the presentation and the puppy.
All the
Okay,
boxes are checked.
Okay.
thanks, Ed.
And
So-
I'm gonna set a time about it for 15 minutes, just to kind of, okay.
And I'll just let you know when
Sure.
to advance, so you can, next slide. So this is just our team. Our president, secretary, treasurer, we have an advisory team and an intern. Next slide. I'm going to go quickly through the majority of the slides here.
Okay. Go way I thought. Okay.
And then this is just a summary of our mission, vision, and values. Really, the values come from my lived experience as a single mom, which is another reason why I started Rooted In. Having overcome poverty and been on multiple social service programs, I've overcome poverty, and I know what it's like to make hard choices. Next slide. So I've developed 3 separate programs. So we do Nourishment for All. It's really a program that ensures access to nutrition security So once a month, we make approximately 400 individually packaged meals that are distributed to our food pantry partners. I've also created a recipe database on our website as a tool for education to connect consumers with local food. And then the Glean Team is our food recovery program. So up until this point, we've mostly been focused on with our Glean Team recovering food from community gardens, individuals, community orchards, on-farm waste. And we did a massive recovery at the NFL draft of 7,000 pounds of perishable foods. We have many opportunities at hand in our community. I will say that there are other entities that are recovering food, mostly other food pantries. Rooted In is not a food pantry. We are an aggregator, so we are recovering food from any source. And we're either, like I said, using it in our meal making program, or redistributing it at a pop-up food pantry that we do once a week, or we distribute it to other food pantry partners in the community. So when I say people donate food to Rooted In, none of it goes to waste. If we end up with food scraps, we are composting that as well. And so a new service that we are rolling out post draft is to start doing a program of food education or education around ways that multiple entities can reduce food waste, whether it's in schools, whether it's at the home level, which is where the majority of food waste occurs, or whether it's at the food service level. I was lucky enough to be a part of some training with through ReFed. It was a train the trainer program. Both the city of Milwaukee and the county of Dane were included in that cohort. And literally we were given a toolbox as to how to train restaurateurs in our community on ways that they can reduce food waste. Part of that homework was talking with Mark about our current food waste landscape, and just doing an analysis of where we are at compared to other communities in our across the nation. The next few slides, I'm not going to go into detail, but literally from a global standpoint, from a national standpoint, from a state of Wisconsin standpoint, food waste is an issue.
on the right side.
Yeah, you can keep going through like the next global impact. It's food waste accounts for over 1 billion tons of waste across the world. It's a key climate and food security solution. So I was lucky enough over the last 2 weeks to go to both the FRAC conference in DC, the Food Research and Action Council, and also the ReFed Summit in Seattle. And when you look at the issue of food insecurity and food waste, they're interchangeable. They're one and the same. So like from a community level standpoint, we have to look at reducing food waste as a mechanism to feed our community. Especially now with the changes that are coming at the federal level to SNAP and Medicaid, building in mechanisms to recover food and, bring in donations of food that are going to waste is going to be more important than ever. And I sort of very briefly went through the national impact, but I mean, everyone sitting in this room realizes, what an impact it has on our landfills, on methane, on greenhouse gases. And so from a sustainability standpoint, using the tools that we have at hand, which is number one, education, AKA prevention of creating food waste in the first place. If we're able to reduce the food waste we're creating, then clearly we're not going to be paying for it when managing our landfills, and our planet will be paying for it as well. We can pop over to the next slide. So this slide just goes through like what sector, what is the cause, and what is the food type of the waste that is currently going into our landfills across the country. Next slide. So the cost of food waste. So just recently ReFed came out with some statistics. So even given the high prices of groceries right now, people are still on average wasting about $100 worth of groceries in their homes right now. And so there's a value in educating folks about best practices for shopping, reading food date labels. So there's a ton of misconception across the nation when it comes to use by, best by dates. There's no federal standard around that. Having worked in product development for Birds Eye Foods, I know that the dates on food, especially canned foods, don't mean anything. It's not a food safety issue, it's a quality issue. So what I've been telling people most recently is ignore the dates, open it up, give it a smell. If it doesn't appear off, eat it. And so there are bills in the state of California was the first state to put in a mandate within the next 2 years that food manufacturers have to be consistent with the best by and use by dates. And the folks at ReFed are like, this is probably going to set the precedence for the rest of the nation to have to incorporate some sort of standards. And it is a huge tool for reducing food waste. Next slide. So Wisconsin's impact. So the last study that was done, the last waste characterization study was done in 2021. Approximately 1.2 billion pounds of food was discarded. That, again, the numbers $1,600 or $1,866 per year per family. Next slide. So I've been lucky enough to get into a statewide coalition regarding food waste with the city of Milwaukee, the Wisconsin Restaurant Association, the DNR, the county of Dane. And we've been meeting regularly over the last few months, and Milwaukee was the beneficiary of a $450,000 USDA federal grant that funded their feed project. It is being led by a woman who has a very strong culinary background, just like me. And so we've been very much aligned in the work that she's doing, and I've looked to them as a model program. They just recently applied for another $1 million grant from the USDA and has appropriated some huge amount of dollars for Rooted In so that we can continue our work here. As well as Madison, because they see this as they want to be partners across the state in reducing food waste. So the DNR just did a survey. They are waiting on the consultant to bring back the results of that to basically come up with a plan as to how we do reduce waste in the state by 2030. Mm-hmm. The EPA is still supporting that as of today. We hope it stays that way. Next slide. So I went through the work plan, waste reduction plan that you guys had put together. And one thing I really wanted to point out was that the number one tools that we have to reduce food waste is education and then donation. So simple, very easy ways to do public campaigns around that. The city of Milwaukee the mayor kicked off a Food Saver Challenge in March of this year, which historically has always been the Food Waste Prevention Week has always been in March. It is now shifting in 2026 to align with the International Food Waste Day. And so I'm not sure how Milwaukee's going to react with their challenge, but the challenge is supported by the mayor. Next slide. So solutions and strategies. So I'm a member of the Zero Food Waste Coalition. It's a national partnership where their number one recommendation is to focus on food donations. Interestingly enough, a friend of mine is on the school board for the Green Bay Public School District. They just completed a survey and got the data back last night. It was an environmental survey, and the number one issue that parents are concerned about is waste. It scored 67%, and food waste is part of that. So the school board is in support of looking at different mechanisms to reduce food waste within schools as well. So I know the U.S. Conference of Mayors has a prerogative to reduce food waste. And so there's many cities across this country that we can look to, as well as Milwaukee, as for model programs to try something new and different here in Green Bay. Next slide. Yeah, so in summary, Krista and I have met a couple times before this, and I know there's going to be a couple of vacancies on the Sustainability Commission later this year, so I have applied. But you know, I would love to find some ways for us to formulate a plan of public education around reducing food waste. The state of California has had massive success in reaching their food waste reduction goals by just through education and donation programs. So we really could go a long way while we build out other mechanisms for food waste diversion and larger composting programs. I'm in the Wisconsin Composting Coalition as well. And so like there's like a lot of these dots that I could help the commission connect. And as a nonprofit, would love to be partners with you to, you know, meet the needs of our community. Any questions? I know I went through a lot.
I'll just comment from a staff perspective. I'm not a voting member of the commission. I'm a staff person. You know, we've been tasked as a sustainability commission and referred to staff to look at pilot programs for food waste specifically, and we're looking internally at our operations as a starting point. But I do really, I think before it even gets to the compost pile,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that's a whole nother big piece of this.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very cost effective. You know, it doesn't take a lot of city and county resources, and there's a lot of community partners who I've been working with that are concerned about this and are willing to step up and help to make sure that we continue to spread the word, because you know, it's an issue that affects all of us. It affects our planet, it affects our health, and you know, for me, reducing food waste is a mechanism to help feed people in our community, and through feeding people, we're telling them that we care about them and that they belong in this community. And a lot of people don't feel that way. So for me, it's more than just reducing food waste. It really is about nourishing and uplifting everyone so they feel like they belong.
I think, you know, to your point of the best by dates, use by dates on especially canned foods. When my kids were in Boy Scouts, we would always help with the food drives. And then at the end of the day, you know, we had all this food and we had to sort.
Right.
And the stuff that was expired went into the discard pile.
Right.
So, you know, changing the perspective, you know, changing some of the views on that.
Right.
Because people, for whatever reason, they'll donate their food that's expired on their
Right.
shelves. They won't eat it.
Right. And apparently now, compared to even 4 years ago, people use those dates more than ever.
Really?
So more people are going by those dates, which mean nothing on you know, shelf stable foods than ever. So now we're creating even more waste than we even were 4 years ago. So there's certainly easy ways that we can start to flip this coin.
So I know a little bit from chatting with you, but if you can maybe share with the group, what are some of the barriers that you and maybe that you've observed in our community to successfully implementing waste diversion through food? Like a program to divert waste through reusing food.
Yeah, so you know, there's multiple avenues that we could, you know, that are options at the table, like creating programs that are specifically for students and families. What I've found that when I teach cooking classes to kids, a lot of the kids will say, well, I'm not going to make applesauce at home because my mom doesn't cook. And so it's like that family aspect that's the most important part of this education piece, is getting mom and dad to see, and then to literally like give people tips on what do you do with carrot tops when they're extra, right? Like instead of throwing them in the garbage, you can make delicious pesto with them. And then people say, what is pesto? And you say, well, let me introduce you to this wonderful food item. Or like shopping at the grocery store. So, you know, versus buying a single package of a seasoned rice, buy a big package of rice in bulk and let me show you how to make a rice pilaf. So just stretching people's food dollars farther, and just giving them those techniques, for different ways within the home, but then at the, you know, at the restaurant level, it really becomes, once the staff is trained, it just becomes like anything else that they do. Like, remember way back when Earth Day first started and like none of us recycled anything. And now everyone flips it and can I recycle this? And so it's just a behavior shift. And I was super, super excited this fall. So through my culinary business, I work at food shows and there's a ton of food waste at food shows. And I was at a food show in Chicago and there was a food waste diversion company there with bins that was literally going through the garbage and making sure that we were not, and teaching us, you know, we're here to take the food scraps. And I was like mind blown, like, this is amazing. Like someday this could be Green Bay, right? I'm like, but just the fact that it's being done in other parts of the country and that it's just this behavior shift over time. It's like anything, you know, it's like riding a bike. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Nice to meet you, Celine.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Mark.
I'd be happy to talk to you more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
one of those things about working where I do in the waste field is
Yeah.
that this is, I don't want to say it's not new to me.
Right.
But,
Oh, yeah.
my hands are tied in terms of because of my job of what I can do
Right.
sometimes. But,
Right.
you know, certainly one of the things that I've seen is stigma of waste food. Ooh, it's been served. Can't move it out someplace else. And I think that's a huge barrier to overcome. I mean, when I heard you were working with the NFL draft stuff, and I've heard it on the news a number of times, you know,
Right.
which is phenomenal. It's great. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what we need to do.
Right.
And yeah, I've done a lot of research on wasted food, you know, ugly fruit, ugly food movement, you know, just
Yeah.
because it doesn't look nice doesn't mean you throw it away kind of
Right.
thing too. There's
Right.
that whole thing in grocery stores.
Mhm.
So, yeah, kudos.
The-
You're doing great work and give me a couple of years here when I retire and I'm gonna be doing a lot of other stuff that I like to say there. Certainly.
Yeah, and we're here to help.
Yeah.
I know that the community, like, everyone's like, so are you rescuing all the food from the Packers this year? And I'm like, I'm working on it. But yeah, I mean, it just people, when people start talking about food waste, like it resonates with everyone knowing how hungry people in our community are. And you know, I see it almost every day. People who are struggling, they're sick already, most people who come to food pantries. And so to be able to give them healthy, nutritious foods, is really satisfying. And, you know, someday I hope to be able to teach people how to cook for themselves and, but we're doing what we can right now and it's good work.
It's any consolation, you know, we've been at recycling since 1990 and it still doesn't go with some, I mean.
Right, right.
At least once a week as well. If I can't recycle it, I'm just gonna throw it away and that's, so. It
part of-
takes time,
Broader challenge.
That's
in
correct.
Community.
Right.
yes.
I have a question. Are there any, like city policies or things that the city could potentially do to support this work?
Well, there's all sorts of things, I think, like, you know, there's some cities that like have implemented ordinances that people will, you know, compost, people will remove food waste from their garbages, but, you know, that's like, for us, that's like, you know, putting the cart before the horse. But there's a lot of states that have been doing this sort of, like, I was in Seattle and like King County, like what they're doing out there, I was just like, holy moly, like you know, like way beyond, like they're great model programs for us to work towards, but I think you know, we need to bite off what we can chew right now and then work our way up. Just like recycling.
So the barrier right now sounds like is cultural perceptions and behaviors, maybe infrastructure related to composting on the waste side of things. I
Right,
know we're exploring that as a commission also, and then down the line, maybe some other policy drivers that
Correct.
could evolve
Correct.
in the future as it becomes
right.
more achievable in our day to day.
Yeah, and one thing I will say is that like donation, like there is food going to waste everywhere in this community. Like no one is addressing on-farm waste. Like I'm like, if I had a van, I would drive out and pick up, you know, from on farms. But right now I'm driving around in my car, picking up food. I've picked up thousands of pounds of produce by myself and gotten it into my car. But if we want to expand and work with the packers, you know, we need community partners to support us so that we can grow and we can be more effective in what the little work. I feel like I've just barely scratched the surface and we're over 25,000 pounds of recovered food in less than 2 years.
Are you working with Wello?
So Willow and I are on a couple of coalitions.
Okay,
But yeah, we're in the same.
cause I went to their annual meeting a month or so ago. I don't know if you were there, but their featured keynote speaker is from Canada.
Yeah,
And he has a cafe or diner where it's all food that would have normally been thrown out, and it's very, very high quality. He serves breakfast, lunches, dinners, super popular spot in the community. It was extremely inspiring, and he
Yeah.
likes to go to, you know, big events where there's charity fundraisers and then tell everybody, guess what's on your plate?
yeah.
It was rescued from the
Right.
garbage can, basically.
Right,
You know, or like take, you think about like, oh, I have these onions and they're a little wilted on the ends,
Right.
that kind of thing.
right.
It happens all the time.
It does, it does.
But I would just suggest, stay in touch with Wello, because
Oh,
they
yeah.
seem like they're really also very passionate about this, and they have a big food van now, and
They do.
Yeah.
Any comments or input from our online folks?
Selena, this is Ned.
Hi, Ned.
Hi. Thanks for speaking to us tonight. It's been fun to watch you kind of over the last year, couple, just really make a huge impact in the community. And I guess I'm going to put the question to you kind of pointed, what would you like to see us as a commission do? Like if we were going to direct a question to the city, or what would you like our next step to be to help you in this endeavor?
Yeah, so I think maybe doing a little bit of a deeper dive into what the city of Milwaukee, the feed program that they've created with less than $500,000, and the impact that they've already had. What they have accomplished, or what Andy has accomplished in less than 2 years, is absolutely astronomical. And she has impacted so many different organizations across that city, supporting the food bank, the food pantries, other community-driven food centers that they have in Milwaukee that we don't. I think like there's a lot of value in us digging into that, and Andy would be thrilled to come and give a presentation. Krista and I spent some time with Andy, but she would love to come and give a presentation about the work that they've been doing. I think something that's super easy would be to, create this food saver challenge, aligning next year with the Stop Food Waste Prevention Week. I did do some interviews this year in that week. And then just creating possibly like very similar to the work that Alex is doing for clean energy, some workshops, some targeted education sessions for different settings across our community. working with other agencies and partners, could be really impactful and not very costly.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Last chance, questions or feedback for Selena?
I'm not a commissioner, I'm other city staff from a different department. I just wanted to make the comment that with planning, so I'm a planner. Education is always one of the first items to do,
Right.
and I can say it myself, when I grocery shop, I want to eat healthy, so. My family buys a lot of produce, but we don't eat a lot of produce. So we compost it, a lot of it
Right.
gets composted,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just sort of education of how much should we actually buy?
Right, that
know,
too.
So I love that you emphasize that 2 or 3 different times, because education for me is always the first thing. And that's one thing I think the city has the ability to do is educate.
Well, and my husband
Doesn't cost much, right?
has called me nuts, but I have these tools that I use in my personal life to schedule our meals, our menus, like we eat certain things on certain days every week. We always eat leftovers once a week. We always take leftovers for lunch. I shop the flyers, like I know I have a list of what's in my freezer at all times. Like these are things that most people don't do, but these are all tools that I've implemented in my life to reduce food waste, and it just needs somebody to show you how easy it is. To be like, I never thought of that. Like I will tell people in the community certain things and they'll be like, I never thought of that. And I'm just like, I've been doing this for years. Like I maybe I just take it for granted, but very similar to what you're saying.
And Dave, there are online calculators and they can download and so forth that actually will say, you know, how much food should I buy for a family of X for a week, or, you know, that they actually help you plan meals, not necessarily the menu, but at least plan how much you need to buy. Because obviously one of the big ways, you know, I'm sure Selena sees that too, you know, holiday times. My wife likes to plan for 50 people showing up and 10 will, but what do we do with the other 40, you know, people's food kind of thing?
Right,
Freezer's always full.
right.
So, you know, but there are those kinds of things online as well that can help. That's just one of those tools.
ChatGPT can probably do it for you too.
Data.
Yeah, menu with these dietary restrictions. that some people-
Communications department.
Yeah,
exactly, there we go.
But I just kind of parallel it with recycling and because you're right, nobody did it for the longest time, and now it's, I mean, I don't even think about getting rid of this plastic anywhere except for the city.
Mhm.
You know,
Oh God, your wish cycle.
but it's just natural. It's like you do not throw this in the garbage. It
Yeah.
doesn't go in the garbage.
And in other parts of the world, that's true of food waste, right? It's
Yeah, absolutely.
it's very
Mhm.
common elsewhere.
It is.
It's a cultural barrier.
It is a cultural barrier.
It's not because it's that hard, it's just because we're not used to it,
Right,
right? Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
I will
Excellent.
just point out that the city of Green Bay has a lot of social media pages. And a lot of these tips could find their way to them if we ever wanted to
100%.
discuss. You know, maybe a list of here are the 10 things that Green Bay City residents can do.
If you are interested in
Absolutely.
preparing that, make sure you guys exchange information.
For sure.
And you
That's
can always send them to me too, and I can,
Yeah.
you know, sort of be the point.
Yeah.
If you like.
Yep, we post things like that on our social and on our website as well, so.
Good.
But
Yeah, anything.
check out Feed Milwaukee, and I can send the link as well afterwards, but their website is like, I wanna just cut and paste their entire website because it has got so much valuable information, and they're so transparent about everything that they're doing and who they're working with and who they're helping. It's just, I'm in awe. Yeah. So.
Cool.
All right, well, we should definitely move on. Thank you so much.
Of course, my
for
pleasure.
your presentation. And we look forward to continuing to hear from you and chat with you. And it looks like Selena has some stuff to hand out if anyone's interested in that. I will continue. Selena, you're welcome to stay. You can take off if you want to. But next up on our agenda, we have some business related to this recycling topic we were just talking about. So just as food waste reduction is moving forward and has faced some cultural barriers, we understand, you know, Mark, to your point, right? Recycling still faces some similar barriers. It was recently brought to the commission that not all Green Bay City parks, including Bay Beach Amusement Park, are offering public recycling receptacles. I'll introduce that and maybe say, Ned, would you like to take it from here? Or would you like me to continue? I'm happy either way.
Oh, I can take it. It's pretty brief, but back in May, I was at Bay Beach with my youngest son, and so I got to give him credit because he was the one who, at age 7, pointed out, like, what are they doing with all the tickets that we're giving them? And where's the recycling? So, that kind of prompted me to get a hold of the mayor and find out if he knew anything about recycling at the parks. Um, and kind of over the last month or so, um, just based on feedback from him and other city staff, it sounds like recycling in Green Bay City parks is very hit and miss. So I am curious, uh, what would be the steps to look at implementing some kind of um, mixed commingled recycling at the different parks, and you know even if it has to just be paper, how do we do that? Maybe starting at Bay Beach with all the tickets that they go through. So I know that would take a significant amount of staff research, and it would cost some money to figure out or to implement, but I think it's something that we should encourage the city to look into.
Thank you. There's some information in your agenda packet, so some background, some recommendations. You want to refer to that, but yes, please, Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's, this is truthfully an area that I've spent a lot of my time at, working in the recycling field for the county for, 15 years now. What we term away from home recycling is problematic at best anywhere in the country. There are very few good solutions for it because it takes a lot of policing to, not in terms of like the police department, but in terms of people kind of keeping an eye on things. There are some strategies that can certainly help, but recycling in parks tends to be messy. People are away from home. They don't really pay attention to what they're throwing away and where they're throwing it away. If your goal is to recycle tickets, I hate to tell you, they're never going to get recycled in our system. They're too small to make it into the recycling system. They're actually better as compost than anything else. Because anything smaller than a credit card size is not going to make it through the sorting system for paper or any kind of container. It just goes into garbage. Automated sorting these days just doesn't work to get small stuff. But anyway, away from home recycling, there are a lot of things that you can try. What fits in one place won't necessarily fit in another. It all comes back around to education, on educating the public, and doing it consistently over and over again. I know that, and Dan, you'd have to tell me when Keith was still working for the parks, because he and I sat down 10 years ago and tried to come up with a solution for Bay Beach specifically for recycling containers and so forth out there, and it never really got legs. It gets, again, people aren't paying attention to what they're doing. And if you look at what people are bringing to a park that is recyclable, it's containers, and then it's a lot of food waste and food packaging, which are not necessarily recyclable. So there's a lot of work that has to be there. You also have to, if you've got a garbage container, you gotta have a recycling container, and they've got to be emptied consistently at the same time so that people don't, when one's full, they don't use the other, and vice versa. but there are strategies with the education. There's a lot of signage that you can go through. It's achievable to to improve it. The level to which you can get on recycling is, you know, the return on your investment is, you can't look at it from a dollar and cent standpoint because it'll never win. But from an environmental standpoint, there's certainly a benefit to having recycling at someplace like Bay Beach, and then using that as a pilot example of what you can do elsewhere. And especially starting with the parks that are the areas that are most used. So there's a lot there. You know, I'm happy to help with anybody who wants to work forward with this at the city as well, because statewide organization, we have Associated Recyclers Wisconsin is primarily municipalities, and you probably run across some of my colleagues on the state. We have lots and lots of strategies that we can try out in different areas, and lots of resources that we can bring to the table from different areas of things that have worked, things that have not worked, and examples of what we might be able to do. So there's a lot there, but it's absolutely well worth trying to move things forward. Unfortunately, Ned, though, your son's going to have to find another way to recycle tickets. At the same time, you know, there's information on composting, and I think that's probably where some of these things can definitely end up. Yeah, you're not going to be doing the food waste stuff from like a park. You're not going to collect. I don't know that you'd have strategies to collect food waste from something like that, but at least there would be an opportunity to compost material, food waste composting. So there's some other strategies that are there as well. But I'd love to see it move forward, and Bay Beach is a perfect place to start because you've got so many families and so many. What do you got? 3 million people a year? Yeah.
And I'd be happy to share with you kind of what we've tried in the past and the successes we've had and the failures we've had, quite honestly. So currently we are recycling at Bay Beach Amusement Park, and we have been for probably 8-10 years. So we have probably 10 to 12 recycling bins scattered throughout the park. And these are the big blue ones that, you know, residents use. And everybody's familiar with those and knows that those are the recycling bins because they use them at their homes every day. And we've cut a circle at the top so that you can't just put general garbage in there. We've been doing it for, I've been told, about 10 years now. I will also tell you that it isn't successful. We've been doing it, but I've been told that probably about 90% of the time it's commingled with other garbage. And we do not have the staffing capabilities to sort through recycling to separate out garbage from recycling. So when that happens, if it's clean, we will recycle it. We check it, we do it regularly. We empty garbages every single day out there. We look at the recycling bins every single day out there. But the vast majority of the time, it's commingled and we have to throw it out. Unless we want to dedicate a lot of resources to sorting through and picking through garbage, which with the staffing we have, that's not a feasible option. If there's an interest to doing that, we'd have to talk about, well, how can we make that happen? We also do have recycling bins at all of our aquatic centers and pools. That is a little more successful. That's probably maybe a 50-50 shot. But that's supervised. That's all within a fence where we have a lot of staffing there, kind of monitoring things. People don't bring in a lot of their own food there. So it's a little more successful at our pools. We also do recycling at all of our Parky program parks. So every Parky shelter has a recycling bin there, and our employees are kind of monitoring that to make sure that it's, you know, only recycling is put in there. And that's 16 sites only in the summer months. So there are 16 parks that have them, but only in the summer months.
So the recycling is just done during the summer months then?
In those 16
At the
parks,
parties, okay.
at those parking
At the parking
locations, yes. And then we also tried a location along the Bear Creek Trail on the far east end of the Bear Creek Trail where the trail meets Bear Creek Road, and we have that small parking lot there. The Bear Creek Preservation Foundation installed a recycling bin, and they took it upon themselves, and they requested permission. We thought it was a great trial there. They agreed to do the sorting for us. So, and also empty those recycling bins. So we didn't ask them to empty the bins, but they said that they would sort them. And I think it's been going okay, but I tried to call today to just get an update, and I can't give you a fair update on how that's going. So I wouldn't say that it isn't being done in our parks at all, because those are the things we're currently doing. What I will tell you is we've also tried other things in the past that just have not worked. And I'm going to use City Deck as an example. When City Deck was constructed, we had recycling bins right next to garbage cans. And we had those there for 10, 15 years. Consistently, similar to Bay Beach, about 90% of the time it was commingled and we couldn't recycle. You do have an occasional, emptying where it works, but again, it's the time to go through all of those, all the bags that because all those bags have to, because now you have 2 half-empty garbages and you're throwing away an extra bag. It's the extra time. So there is time to empty those also along with it, and resources and money attached to having those if it just ends up in the garbage anyway. So I'm definitely open to suggestions and ideas, but I'd be very hesitant to just jump into, let's throw a recycling bin in every park and hope for the best. I think we've done enough trials in our parks to know that it's problematic, and you aren't going to end up with great results unless you can figure out a way to get the message out and inform the public that, hey, this is important. Let's continue to do it, and let's do it right. But even when you do those messaging things, if it's not a consistent messaging program, it's going to get forgotten about, and it might be a short-term solution, but long-term, it's just going to go back to the way it was. I've had multiple discussions with other parks directors throughout the years. Every community struggles with this. This is not a Green Bay thing. So although I appreciate the interest and the effort of doing it, I just want to be cautious of, hey, don't just jump into it 100% and expect you're going to have great results. Because the only way to really make this successful, to actually take advantage of all of the recycling that's an option, is to actually pay somebody to sort through the garbage. So that's all I can tell you. I guess it's kind of up to you how you want to go from here and what direction you want to go, but I'm always open for trying different things, and if you have any suggestions, I'm more than open to seeing what we can do.
Thank you for sharing that insight. For the benefit of those who maybe aren't as familiar, will you just share your role?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm the Parks Director, and I've been with the city for 25 years.
Thank you.
And go ahead.
I have a question. So is that what, this is obviously an issue when it gets to the recycling center. So like, what is the recycling centers doing?
What are recycling
Or whatever,
sorting facilities?
like because
I couldn't tell you.
it's very difficult to fix this, change this end. So
Yeah.
what?
At the end of the line where everything's being sorted at the MRF, Material Recovery Facility, what's coming from a recreational, we don't know. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't track what's coming from, let's say, Bay Beach to Appleton.
Sure.
There's no way to know what that is, because it's all, it's
But
picked
you
up.
must get a lot of commingled stuff.
We get a lot of commingled stuff. At the end of the day, out of the let's say 100,000 tons of material that comes through the facility, about 9,000 is garbage. So and a lot of that is just education.
I'm sorry, did you say that again? Did you say out of
100,000, about 9 to 10,000 is garbage. So
it's a 90% success rate?
Yeah, we look at it as a 9 to 10% residual rate is what it's called. Industry standard nationwide is anything less than 25%, and recycling is considered good.
And we're at 90?
Yeah, we're typically
Wow.
between 9 and 10% all the time. But that's, you also have to look at the, so the material recovery facility, is actually owned by Brown, Allegheny, and Winnebago counties jointly. And most of our material is coming from households as opposed to commercial businesses. They're going to GFL's facility down in, Oregon, or Waste Management's facility in Germantown. So they get more garbage. We can pick and choose kind of who our audience is, and that's part of why we're cleaner. I mean, it helps, but we're also publicly owned and operated and all that. There's a lot of other pieces there. And it's true that, recreational facilities, even, not just parks, but we don't accept the Packers recyclable material because it's more than 60% garbage, typically has historically been what it's done. There are stadiums though around the country that are doing a much, much better job, but it takes time and effort and obviously funding to put it into that. Cleveland is like the star of the recycling world in football fields in terms of how well they do. There has been a lot of work, as you know, Dan, in terms of, there's always new research, new work in terms of what strategies work and what don't. And there has been a lot of that with recreational facilities, with parks. Yes, what does actually work or not. And a lot of it goes back to what kind of messaging you have on your, at the receptacle. What is there? What is, is it something that catches someone's attention when they're putting things in there or not? And that's probably 90% of what makes people sort things, is if they've got a bottle in their hand and they're going to put it in a garbage can and it says no, somehow there's something there that's saying no, don't put it there, or vice versa. That will help immensely. And there are a lot of examples of types of receptacles, messaging that do work better. But again, it gets back to having something side by side, garbage recycling, and making it consistent and apparent to people to as to what they need to do. So there's, and I understand exactly, like I say, 10 years ago, working with Keith, and that he basically gave up out of frustration because people just weren't paying attention. And I understand that.
And one thing I do just want to point out too, is I'm just talking about the recycling that's done, public facing. From a staffing standpoint, we do recycle. So, we do that from our operations. So we do that at the park shop, where our staff at Bay Beach recycle all the stuff that they do while they're working. So that's all we've done.
So you said, I have more questions. So you said like, for example, you don't take the Packers because it's just too much. But and you said 90% of it, the time it's commingled, but you don't really know the percentage it's commingled, do you?
Correct. I can't answer.
So
that.
I'm just curious, like maybe it's not commingled as badly. Maybe there's an option where you can, or there's options for people to take it because it's not. If we could up it to where it's, the residual rate is low, at least to a percentage that it's acceptable, where it doesn't have to be sorted by staff or something, but it gets sorted at the facility, which is like the most logical place anyway. So I mean, I'm wondering if there's some, just even assessing what the residual rate is at Bay Beach, for example, to start, and then seeing if we could get it up, just using maybe some simpler strategies that are been proven.
From my standpoint, at the end of the line standpoint, if we can keep things out of plastic bags, we're going to be 10 times more successful in terms of what we recycle, because plastic bag message, and I think I've said that here before, is if you put your recycling in a plastic bag and put that plastic bag into recycling, then it's going to go in the garbage. We're not going to touch it after that. We're not going to put it into the recycling sorting. We're not going to empty the bag. It's going to go right into the garbage, because you never know what's in that plastic bag. And it's certainly, so people who recycle, or communities that recycle or collect things in plastic bags, limit what our choices are down the line. So we want things as loose as possible. That is not always a possibility, especially at a site where you're collecting You know, you don't want you may not have the ability for your staff to even actually empty a dumpster in terms of tipping it or somehow you can get those bags out. Or even the garbage cans empty the garbage bags. You don't want them reaching in and taking things out. So there's some limitations there as well, but there are other strategies and there's a lot here. That take a look at. What else you got?
I have maybe just a direct question for you. What do you think about, like, do you think it's a good idea to recommend like a feasibility study for city staff? Or as in your professional opinion, are there bigger fish to fry?
Well, that's a loaded question.
I know.
I mean, I think.
Speaking as Mark
I
Walter,
if I
the
look
individual.
broadly at the city facilities and said, most of the city facilities do a great job of recycling. We know that. I mean, we're not getting, I talk to the drivers, we see what comes in and, the offices and so forth. They do great jobs. That's never an issue. Public facing places are always an issue because you don't know when people are visiting. You don't know what they're bringing in. There's a lot of, and you don't want to have staffing or policing, like you say, 24/7. Are there some options out there? Yeah, I'm quite certain there are some options out there that would potentially improve how things are going. I mean, I've done some research recently on what recreational facilities can use for getting the message out better, and there are some options that I've come across that would make things potentially a little bit better. So yeah, feasibility study is not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, that's a resounding
Maybe.
I guess one other consideration, I'm definitely open to that as an option if you think that has the most, gonna have the most impact. The other way we could approach it is just let's figure out a trial, what can we try to improve and where, and try it in the park versus, put the time into actually trying it somewhere versus putting the time into research and analysis for something that we don't know if it's really gonna work or not. And then just kind of report back, can we tried it for X number of, months and this worked, and maybe we can expand on each year as we go on. If you want my 2 cents on what's a better option, I would see that as a better option than doing a feasibility analysis or a study or a cost analysis. Instead, just do a trial, do a little bit of research on what other municipalities have done, have a discussion with Mark, figure out what ideas he has. And just try something different at Bay Beach or 1 or 2 other parks and see how it goes. Report back.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I keep hearing is that you've tried some things historically. There were challenges that repeated themselves, right? And so, but I'm also hearing that there are recreational facilities that are doing this, right? And so I'm wondering if maybe rather than a feasibility study, like a best practices study, to generate ideas to apply to a pilot program might be more impactful because you already know what some of your challenges have been. There might be new practices, or let's call them technologies or whatever, that might warrant revisiting for pilot program. Thoughts?
Yeah, if you got enough money and you can throw it at it, you'll come up with a solution, but that's not really what we're.
It's not our
trying to do.
situation here. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's because you want to be able to repeat it, you want to be able to extend it to other areas and so forth. So, there is more to it. That, I mean, it's not necessarily a feasibility study per se, but at least, what are the costs involved with the pilot would show you what that would be. I like the idea of a pilot project because it not only will give you some ideas of what other options there are, but it also show you how successful something might be in the pilot in and of itself is as an outreach effort, so that it brings more attention to what you're doing. When you say you're doing a pilot program, people, oh, great, they'll listen. And then you start expanding it, they'll have had that background already, potential no problem.
I have to run, but I'm in favor of a pilot program.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Well, since we didn't get to it and we're going to next, if you have any feedback about the comprehensive plan, you could email it unless you already had an opportunity.
What? I'm an alder, I'll have an
Right,
opportunity.
okay.
Gotta get several.
I just wanted to offer that, so you can still give it, but
Thank
good,
you.
thanks for being here. Okay, so we have a maybe pilot program is a good path forward. Anyone else online who want to weigh in?
I would like to do a pilot program at Bay Beach. I think that we know that using the blue residential, recycling bins sounds like it has about a 10% success rate. So we know that we have millions of people using Bay Beach and most of them probably aren't from the city, so they maybe don't recognize the blue bins or, it sounds like we definitely need a different kind of receptacle. So I think we would be well served to study what other public facing facilities use for recycling, to make it really concrete and clear what people should be doing with those receptacles. So yeah, I think, you know, it- are we going to refer this to staff or are we going to refer this to a department? What do we think?
The way the recommendation was written. Is to refer to the Parks Committee. After this committee, that's what this committee decides on. To take it up at the Parks Committee and then for the Parks Committee, because we're in sustainability's advisory, it needs to go to a standing committee. And then refer to city staff for further exploration, and then I'm not gonna read the whole recommendation, but. It doesn't have to be feasibility, you can remove that. But collaborating with other cities, finding successful models that have already been implemented, looking at, better bins, maybe. One thing that it's not in here, but the keeping the language in pictures as much as possible on bins, I think should be looked at for people that maybe do not speak English or English is not their first language. We need to make this super easy for people. So those are my recommendations as far as how it moves forward.
And I
So-
guess if I could just add to that, I'm sorry for interrupting, but if the desire is to try something at Bay Beach, obviously the summer is halfway over. So if this is gonna be referred to a committee for discussion and whatever, we're talking a pilot program next year, which is fine, we can go that route. But if you want us to just kind of do some quick research, try a couple different bins, maybe see which ones work, which ones don't work, and maybe compare different bins throughout the site to see which ones have more of an impact. I think we can go ahead and just try something like this, but if you're gonna refer it to a committee for further discussion. About, potentially doing a study of some kind. I just want to let you know this summer will be over by the time we get to that, and we'll be looking at next year, which is fine. I don't have a preference one way or another. I'm just throwing that out for consideration.
So you'd be open to direct referral to the Parks Department, city staff to ask you to do those things? Is that allowed? I don't know.
Well, it still has to go to Parks Committee.
It's gotta go to
Yeah,
Parks Committee regardless.
Mhm.
Well, potentially, I mean, if as a director, I think we can accomplish it with the resources we have. It doesn't necessarily have to go to a committee. It's something that I can just direct staff to do and we can try it. So this doesn't need to continue with a committee process at this point if you want to try something this year. I can just, see what works, have some discussions with other municipalities or other amusement parks, see what works, and just try something and get a couple of weeks of use out of it and see if we can get a comparison to bring it back to a committee or saying, this is what we tried, this worked, this didn't work. And it wouldn't have to be referred to, you can refer it to staff if you want, or I'm not sure. I'm just throwing that out for consideration. As a committee, you can decide how you want to handle it, but I'd be open to just trying a few different things at Bay Beach this year yet.
I appreciate that, Dan, and I'm wondering if we can do both. And I think we have to. I think we're required to refer this. Um, but if you are willing, just as a director to try some things to start gathering some data as soon as possible for next year, I think that would be really helpful.
It sounds like there might be one refer to parks for a more holistic study, but then maybe a recommendation. Are we allowed to make recommendations to city staff? Kind of to the effect of what you described. Right, I wanna hear from other folks online. Ned, if you're done.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, Corey, I know you had your hand up for a while, and then Danielle, we'll go to you.
Great. Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to mention, which I think I've mentioned before, that I think a tactic we could perhaps look at is to create some unique, like outside the box type of containers or collection. I don't want to call it a bin, but I'm thinking, I don't know, like I could see a big recycle monster sculpture or something, you know what I mean? Like something that makes people want to only put recycling in there, but to make it like an interactive like way of showing like it's not just going in the garbage and going away. So I don't know exactly what that might look like, but I think just thinking outside the box for the container itself could maybe help people recycle better. That's all I have.
Thanks, Corey. Daniela, please go ahead.
Yeah, so first I just want to apologize. Work ran late, so I'm coming into this conversation towards the end, and so I apologize. I may have missed some things that were already said. But a couple thoughts. One, I think piloting some things is great. Also, I think there are lots of examples of things people have tried to various successes and challenges. But my suggestion would just be keep it simple. And, I think, we were talking about contamination earlier, and, if we are focusing on just, let's say, bottles and cans as, the simplest things to try and reclaim, then just making it really clear that those are the two things that are wanted. There are bins that have, the slots to kind of clarify that, and that's a best practice. But yeah, I'm sure we could pull together some more specific recommendations based on, just the different experience that we have and information that's out there. So that's my general recommendation is try and keep it simple.
Yeah. Thank you. I guess maybe back to you with that in mind. What would you like to see from the Sustainability Commission in terms of partnership or support?
Maybe a good direction moving forward here would be to direct staff to consider, because I don't know if you can actually make the recommendation to me. You can recommend that staff consider trying a pilot program yet this summer at Bay Beach Amusement Park, trying different recycling tactics, however you want to phrase that, and then just report back to the committee for input at the end of the summer. And then you can decide at that point if additional studies are warranted or how you want to address it at that point.
Okay. Ned, this was something you brought. What would you think about that? And obviously everyone too, but maybe just offering to Ned first. You said you'd really like to see, or maybe both of you, if we need to refer something to a committee, but thoughts on that approach, recommending to park staff to explore some recycling collection best practices and trial some of those practices yet this year and report back.
I think if we're okay to do that, if we're like just technically allowed to do that, then I think that would be good. And then check back in with Dan in a couple months. And then at that point, if we need to refer something bigger to the Parks Commission, you know, we could do that at that time. But I guess I'll ask Melissa if that sounds like we'd be following procedure, doing things that way.
Well, my understanding is that as an advisory committee, you can make recommendations, but not necessarily give explicit direction like that. That is my understanding.
So it's still, this recommendation would still need to be approved by,
Correct, yes, so you can make that recommendation and then it would go, if it doesn't go to the Parks Committee, to a standing committee, it would go on the next council agenda for consideration.
when is the next council meeting?
Not the August.
I think it's the August 6th, right around there.
August 6th? Oh, man, okay.
I know I'm just not well versed in procedural points of order, but does that mean like city parks department can't just start working on it unofficially?
Well,
Well, Dan can do whatever he wants, kind of, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
would be great.
this tomorrow if you felt like it. I'm just saying, not customary that an advisory committee says, staff, you do this.
Correct.
But we're
It needs to be-
recommending
There's a process for
that
things.
that's appropriate, that we
I
can.
don't know that we'd be making a recommendation.
Yeah.
But can we make a suggestion? Is that a different, I don't know how the city.
I don't know the intricacies of.
I mean,
Yeah, I
look,
mean,
Dan, can we give you a recommendation and like, do we need to be formal? I guess I truly don't know. It
Can we
seems
get-
like you're
get
open
enough
to
that
an
Sustainability commissions can say, you know, it'd be great if you could do this and leave it at that.
I don't think so. I think we need to follow procedure, but I also like, Dan, if you're willing to start doing this as soon as possible, we would appreciate that. There's nothing wrong with Dan making that decision for the department.
And I think it would be good to have the Parks Committee updated on what the conversation was too, and what you're planning on moving forward with, and you can update them. If it's just a recommendation, right? I mean,
I mean,
Let's
I
do the
should maybe
Parks
be the
Committee.
person to ask.
like,
Unfortunately, I'm not.
was it informational to the Parks Committee? I don't know.
Maybe what you could do is just refer this topic to the Parks Committee at the end of the summer. And then by then I'll have done some research and put something together and I can just present what I found.
So it would be, so I just was practice writing a motion because I
Thank
wasn't sure
you.
exactly how this conversation was going to go. I had written, recommend park staff trial several strategies to improve commingled recycling at Bay Beach Park this summer. Park staff to report back at the end of summer to, I mean, either this commission or to the Parks Committee. That is completely just what I was writing, but based on the conversations of how it was going.
I drafted something similar. I said recommend to Parks Department staff to explore recycling collection best practices at recreational facilities and implement trial collection at Bay Beach during the 2025 season, then report back to the Sustainability Commission at the end of the summer.
I'm comfortable with that.
You're comfortable with Kristen's, okay.
Daniela, please.
Yeah, is this something that, so in my experience, spent a good amount of time looking at recycling best practices, and I know Mark is very well versed in that. Is that something that we can support you with, so that you're not kind of starting at square one in doing research?
Yeah, what I would recommend is whoever has knowledge and input on that, I would just set up a meeting maybe as early as next week. To start talking about that. So definitely with Mark, and if you'd like to be involved too, I would just need your contact information and we can set up a meeting next week if that works.
Great. I'd be happy to.
Yeah,
And Melissa said she
that's good,
helps
that's a good work group
That's right.
activity, cause
Yeah.
we have work groups set up within the
Yeah.
Sustainability Commission's work plan. Which are usually like comprised of 2 to 3 different people from the board.
Whoever is interested, just reach out to Melissa and tell her that you're interested, and then Melissa can coordinate a meeting date.
Just no more than 4 or 5, cause we don't
Yeah.
want, otherwise it'll be quorum. So.
And I'll just offer, thank you for your willingness to
Yeah.
collaborate on this, and I know from working with Melissa that. We want to be very cognizant of the recommendations we make to city staff. Because we're not the ones doing the work, so where we can support your efforts and leverage our expertise, please rely on us and we're happy to do so.
Yeah, we want to see this be successful. I mean,
Yeah.
this is an initiative we've been trying for years and haven't found a good solution. So we're always open to new ideas and trying new things. And if we can do more of it in the city, we will.
Fantastic.
So.
All right, so any other discussion? Otherwise, we gotta move into a motion here, I think. I'll give a last chance though for discussion or input. All right, I'm gonna, unless anyone else wants to jump in. You can maybe help me out with the motion language. But what I'm starting with is I move to recommend to Parks Department staff, or do I just say city staff? It's basically what you already said.
I can put Parks Department.
Yeah. To explore recycling collection best practices. Do you want us to say at recreational facilities? That's like unique, that's the term you used, where there's unique challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, at recreational facility. I can email them to you.
Yes, I think what you need to do is, what I would ask you to do is. Ask for a motion to be made, read your motion, get a second, and then we can include, get the verbiage right based on the recording of the minutes.
Okay. Can I make the motion?
Mhm.
Okay. I make a motion that we recommend to Parks Department staff to explore recycling collection best practices at recreational facilities and implement trial collection at Bay Beach during the 2025 season, then report back to the Sustainability Commission at the end of the summer. Would anyone second that motion?
I second.
Second.
Hey, we've got a triple second. Second and the third. All right, any discussion on that item? All in favor of
Aye.
doing that?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion that I will email to you passes. All right, fantastic. Good work, team. Dan, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dan.
Some of us will be in touch. All right, excellent. We are moving on to,
Yes,
yeah, what else? Do you need anything else on that one?
nope, that's all.
Great.
So.
Then next up, we have discussion and feedback on the draft comprehensive plan. Do you want to say anything about that, Melissa?
I was just gonna say, I had it in the background information, so I don't need to read it all, but everyone on the commission was emailed a copy of the draft plan on July 9th. It's too big to include as an attachment, and it's in draft form. Our planning staff, David Buck is here to answer any questions that you may have, but they are looking for commission comments by July 21st, which is next week. And for this type of input, they're looking for a collective input from the commission, not individuals, making recommendations, but collective comments.
But there will be time for individual ones.
There will be time for individual comments later.
But
So-
as a community member,
But no, so what I'm saying is.
Not as a commission.
Right, so that's why it was sent out in advance, so that people would have the time, and you don't necessarily have to have all your commitments or your comments done right now. You have until July 21st, so if the commission wants to talk about things now, that's great, and all of this will be recorded, and the planning staff can grab the comments that are being recorded.
Yeah,
But if there are written comments,
I'll try to write them down.
if there are
As
written
well.
comments to do a consensus-based comments.
And I'm willing, I plan to kind of capture some of our discussion and I can send them all to you or whoever you tell me to send them to.
Well, and I can give the 5-minute, 5-cent little intro to comp planning, so it might be strange for some people. I mean, not for me, working, no one knows a lot about it as well. But so in your staff report, it did say it was a 30-year long range plan. It's actually 20. But historically, comp plans are required for every municipality, I think over 10,000 people, to be able to enable zoning. You don't have a comp plan, you can't regulate land use. So it is a very important document. It's adopted by ordinance. They've been doing it forever. I mean, we had a plan done in 1911, I think, one of the first ones in the country. We got pictures of it upstairs. It's very cool. Pardon me?
I got a map of it on my wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so historically throughout the last 100 years plus, they've been these long, big technical documents. So I wish I was gonna bring copies of our current one. It's 2 bound documents this thick.
Wow.
So it's a giant document. It's very, very technical and it's very broken down into sections. So, and you'll see we have chapters in here as well that kind of follow those state statutes. But what we were directed and what's sort of the best practice nowadays for comp planning, the world moves really fast. It doesn't move slow like it used to. I don't know if it ever moves slow, but it's moving really fast right now. So our comp plan that we currently use was adopted in 2003. Gets updated every single year. But it was very, very heavy on big box development on. Ours didn't have sprawl issues, but the big topics at the time were traditional neighborhood design. So going back to the neighborhoods of the 30s, which is still very popular in this plan. And mixed uses and that kind of thing. But it stretched out the recommendations to hundreds of action items, hundreds and hundreds of action items, and it just became overwhelming. So our time to update our comp plan was now. We hired 2 companies out of Chicago. One was Halsey Levine, they're a planning firm. They've done hundreds of comp plans all over the country. And the other was All Together, which is a marketing firm, bilingual marketing firm, and they just do a lot of communication pushes and that kind of thing. So we started that about 18 months ago, October of 2023. I have some notes here. I'm gonna be super fast. I know I'm talking still. So over the 18 months, and Julia was great enough to volunteer on the advisory committee and very active, and we really appreciate it. But over those 18 months, we did a lot of public outreach. We did stakeholder interviews, business owners in the community, healthcare, education, other government entities. We interviewed the elected officials at the time, and then as they switched over, we interviewed the new ones. We interviewed some of the commissions and board members, and all the department heads. It was relatively interesting when you look at, a lot of these were like SWOT analysis. What's our strengths, our weaknesses? You're all familiar with SWOT, right? Interesting to see that the comments coming back from different groups didn't necessarily match. To the point even of elected officials versus department heads. Didn't necessarily match on there. What's our strengths, our weaknesses, our threats, and what opportunities do we have? And that's really what a comp plan is for. But then after that, we got an existing conditions memo from a firm from outside of the community, which had a lot of insights that you kind of take for granted. So I'll just mention one. As a commercial corridor, you think of downtown as the commercial center. People from Chicago thought Main and Mason on the east side was our commercial center. They haven't been here before. They didn't know, so they gave that feedback. In my mind, who've lived here most of my life, it's downtown, it's Broadway. It's where Port Plaza used to be. But when you get the outside consultants in, they see it differently. And so across the board, they did those kind of things. But we held a community visioning session in last April. And that was pretty well attended. There was 50, 60 people that showed up at Titletown. And it was a lot of visioning type of stuff. So maps, what do you like? What would you like to see more broken down into different sections? Everybody presented at the end of it. And you can go on our website, which is gobiggreenbay.com, and you'll see a lot of stuff on there. And they came up with a vision statement, which is in the plan. Also, during that whole time, we have a website that's up, took suggestions. I can't remember how many we received, 1,000 surveys, something like that, which is great. 10% is a great return. We have a map social program, which you could put dots on a map and say, I like this intersection, I don't like this. This should be a trail, or this should be preserved, or whatever. And we got a lot of hits on that as well. We had a thing called a do-it-yourself workshop kit that we sent out to neighborhood associations and to other entities. We had a few churches do them, and 4 or 5 neighborhood associations submit them back. And we did a lot of pop-ups. So we were at events, not just planning staff, a lot of city staff volunteered for the pop-ups. We were at the farmers markets, all of them, Oneida Farmers Market, Broadway, Military, downtown. We were at Kids Day, we were at the dog walk, we were at wherever we could go where people would be. So the traditional way to do it was say, everybody come down to City Hall and tell us what you like. You get 5 people, and you get the same 5 people at every meeting. And it's not reflective of the community. So we purposely did massive amounts of outreach, and it took a long time. It took 1.5 years, but we got all that feedback. Consultants came up with a draft. We brought it to our advisory group, which is about 15 people, probably more like a dozen really active, but a 15 group body, and handpicked for their expertise and sort of their thoughts. So there was business people on there, there was housing providers, that kind of thing. And they had 6 different advisory meetings. The first ones were really introductory. The last few were more review the plan and give us comments. And so that's kind of where we are now. So our timeline, so we want to have a draft plan. We have a draft plan, but a final draft plan by the end of July. And we're bringing it to certain committees that are not council committees, standing committees. So sustainability, equal rights, landmarks, 3 of the biggies. Council's going to be getting this anyway. So if it's a committee of just council members, they're going to be seeing it anyway. So end of July, we want to have that final draft. Then we're going to bring that to senior staff in early August for them to do the last round and kind of the edits. Mid-August, we're going to start our communication push. So we have a lot that we do with our comms push. And then hopefully the first week of September 3rd, actually, we would do an open house, probably at the water department. And that's a community open house. So it's sort of a walk through, look at the boards, give us your comments, go back and forth. Once that final draft at the end of July is done, it won't be changed again. So there'll be a running suggestion list, so to speak, that will continue with the draft plan. And it's up to the officials, plan commission first, and then the council, to kind of pick what they want, what they don't want, and have that incorporated. So that's kind of where we are. The comp plan is really interesting. So you're going to have an introduction, like they always do at the beginning. What is it? How does it work? How do you use it? Our updates now aren't going to be every 20 years. They would be a full rewrite every 5. So rather than having 100 action items, we only have for each sort of section, maybe 6 or 7, some maybe 8 or 9. They're attainable. When we get halfway down with those, we'll probably update that section and bring it through. Again, we found that our current one is not dynamic enough to meet the needs of the community and the other governments and everything. Everything just moves really fast. We have the vision and goals. Really the big parts of a comp plan are land use and development. So land use plan dictates zoning, dictates what you can do with your property or what the city should do with their property. So that's really important at that land use map. Transportation and mobility, community facilities and infrastructure, and then sort of a new trend. Our old plan had this as well, the current plan, is how you divvy up the city. So you have those big topics, transportation, where the big highway is going to go, how are you going to run the bus system, that kind of thing. But we break the city down into districts, nodes, and corridors. So it breaks into a group of districts. And when you look at the plan, you'll kind of see them. So like the far west side is has can't remember the exact name, but it's Oneida Nation Residential. And then as you go east, it's Oneida Nation Commercial. Oneida Nation is basically a fifth of our city. And they are reviewing it as well. We've been working with them as well. And then it just continues down. So you have a lakefront district, or excuse me, a bayfront district. The far east side is our growth area. It's our only open area. Stadium district, I'll leave it at that. And then you have certain nodes as well in there. So downtown has special nodes, and there's special nodes in that plan that specific attention should be given. And then we have sort of this conceptual thing, which is really kind of new, but it seems to be really successful to help commissions and staff direct, how this plan develops. So during this, we do the comp plan, we adopt it, but we do area and corridor plans all the time. University Avenue has one, Belp has one, Military has one, downtown has its own plan. Parks Committee has their own plan, they have a park plan. Sustainability has your 2050 sustainability plan. So we do lots of planning that aren't necessarily comp plan stuff. They are incorporated to that, but what we have in a chapter is called the personality areas. So they picked 5 areas out of the city and basically found examples of what worked in other communities. Put the challenges, this is what you should think about, and then a bunch of examples and links to where they were done. Example would be University Avenue. We got a lot of feedback on University that it's becoming very Latino oriented. They're organized. Business associations are starting to form. And so some of the best practice that you do when you have that, we pulled some stuff out of Milwaukee, out of Chicago. They pulled stuff out of Jersey as examples of this is how you can make this successful. These are the things that you do. And so that is really interesting in our comp plan that I don't think I've ever seen in any other ones. But it also directs staff to say, when we get some funding to do a corridor plan, it's one of these 5 corridors. When that plan is done, we'll probably do the next one, do another one. We'll update that plan. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the comp plan. The last is implementation. And really, the core of that is a big table with the action items on who's responsible for them, who are your partners, and what grade are they? Are they immediate need, mid-range, or long range? Some things just have to be long range. So if you had said, it's not in the plan, but if you had said we need a new highway to cut across the city, that's long range. You're not going to do that for 20, 30 years. It takes that long just to do it and engineer it and have it happen. So some of them are long range like that. That table in the plan is not filled out yet because we don't know what recommendations are going to make it through the city process. So that's where we are. I think Stephanie, one of our other planners, had tried to point out sections of the plan that might be more sustainability oriented. Makes sense. But as Julia knows, it's like almost all of the sections really. It really is. But those neighborhood districts are really important too, because they're going to have direct hits. And we went out to every district, several meetings, and talked to the residents of that district. What do you want? Also talk to the elders of those areas. So with that, I'll just leave it, and I can answer any questions. But if you have suggestions, the more specific, the better. I mean, I'll even take direct wording. But even if they're more broad in general, we can take a look at it as staff and get those to the consultants to have those update. And that's my spiel. Sorry it took me longer than 5 minutes. I'm a babbler.
Great, thank you very much. Julia, maybe since you've been so involved, do you have anything that you want to weigh in on that would help us get good feedback?
Yeah, I was gonna go at the end since I've given them a lot of feedback. Yeah, right. But I guess what I would say before I give see if anyone else brings up stuff. But I would say I was extremely impressed by the amount of community engagement that you and Aaron did. It was like very impressive by going out all summer, last summer. And really knocking on a lot of business doors too. Yeah. Great, so I'll go at the end.
Yeah, from you were involved in the development of this process, right? So anything that that you can maybe share with us that has been like the things that we would care about have been considered. So commission lens, right? Sustainability
Yeah,
commission.
I mean, I guess bigger, broader picture, to me, the comprehensive plan is really important. It is long, you'll be doing, you said every 5 years, but still, it's like a 20-year vision. And that's a long time, you know, and because we're looking at the one from like 2000, think of how much has changed. And it's really important in general with land use decisions. And land use is is probably one of the biggest effects on the environment and sustainability in general, and climate. And energy, all those things. So I think it's a really important opportunity for us to weigh in and get these things in there, because it's like a statement to whoever comes to the community to develop, that we care about these things. And it's right there. You know, the last one was really key in preventing Walmart from coming downtown. So, yeah. So like I would say again, it's
And that.
planning, you have to be Dave to really appreciate we had that, but so.
Yeah, and you'll see sprinkled throughout here. So the first thing that just jumped out at me, and I think, Julia, that was one of your comments, is our overall goals for community facilities and infrastructure was, there's only 3. But the third one is support the transition to 100% clean energy, achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 in accordance with the clean energy big plan. So, I mean, they had your plan, they looked at it. Obviously, we can't put every detail in here, and we really don't want to, because we have a plan already. We need to reference it and make sure it's always available with that comp plan.
Well, and that plan could change also.
Correct. So we
Right.
don't want all the
Right.
details in here because
Mhm,
you can't keep up. Parks plan changed every 5 years.
mhm.
And sometimes drastically. So it's, you don't want to update everything you have every 5 years. You want to reference it and put it in the back. So always the park plan is, no matter how it gets updated, will always be in here. The same thing with sustainability. We may have to change the name, change the 2050 anymore, but that's the easy fix.
Right.
But some of the other stuff you'll see, I think for transportation or for, sustainability, some of the biggest things that I see in here is you're gonna see some stuff in housing and neighborhoods. It's creating, what the plan is recommending a lot is more density in certain areas and other areas leaving them green. Rather than, you know, half-acre lots everywhere where everybody has a manicured lawn. If you can densify and save some of those areas, that's better, even if they're privately held, like a conservation by design subdivision along Bear Creek. Smaller lot sizes, but more green space. Overall, it's the same amount of area, right? It's like, say it's 10 acres. Just you don't have 10 houses on 10 acres, you have 10 houses on 2 acres, and 8 acres is open space that they all share and use. That's actually kind of the market is starting to do that anyway, buying smaller lots. They don't want to maintain anymore. So housing in neighborhoods, some of the adaptive reuse stuff for the port and Fox River. There was a lot on transit-oriented development. And that is really trying to get people to stop using their vehicles so much. People from Chicago were really kind of shocked at everybody here drives everywhere. To the point where they were interviewing people that will drive 1 block away rather than walk. Why? Just because they always did it, right?
And it's not always safe.
No,
Yeah.
so,
Bike.
so you'll see a lot of that, but also complete streetscaping,
lot of
active
content.
transportation, make the streets enjoyable to walk down. If there's no sidewalks, you are going. I have a great example for a school on the east side. Made a lot of comments that they did not like that traffic was so busy. But they killed the sidewalks when they were supposed to go into the neighborhood. You're causing your own issues. So if you have a grade schooler that is 3 blocks away, you have to drive them because there's no sidewalks. Where you could, back in my day, you would walk. But even if it was a walking school bus where you had adults with children walking, where you can't walk on the street, especially when so many people are dropping off. So again, just an example for a complete street type of thing. There is a section on emerging technologies, mainly with transportation, and then infrastructure services. So that's kind of what one of the other planners, Stephanie, had put in here to kind of hope for you guys to focus on. But yeah, I can say Julie did make a lot of changes while we were going through and inserted a lot of stuff.
That was my other comment. I saw that you incorporated a lot of my feedback, so
Try to.
that's very appreciative.
Well, and obviously the advisory committee often has conflicting comments, right? So your focus is sustainability, environmental, businessman is on economic development, so they might not always be opposed, but sometimes they might be. So
I don't think
Kinda had to
they're,
sit
people
through
personally
those.
think they're in conflict, so. So anyway.
well,
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Ned's had his hand up. Please go ahead, Ned.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I was really excited to see Complete Streets as a major part of this. The first time I ever heard about this was 15 or 20 years ago. I was having a conversation with our now mayor and talking about just safer ways to bike and walk around town and what other communities are doing. Um, so really happy to see Complete Streets and hoping to see some bike routes completed over the near term. That would be wonderful. So thank you.
So Ned, can I ask a question kind of further on that? So when you talk bike routes, you're talking transportation bike routes, not necessarily recreation or both.
So we've got that bicycle and pedestrian network map included in the plan. And there are there've always been some major sticking points in our existing bicycle routes, like right downtown with Monroe and kind of where it hits University, um, along the East River and such. So I guess, that could certainly be for either pedestrian or for recreation or transportation. But having like a larger functioning greenway system, I think would certainly improve uh, people having that option of riding to work. And, I'm a teacher, so kind of one of my major concerns is safe movement of children to school. And I'm always happy to see more sidewalks, more pedestrian controlled lights, and safer bike routes. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah, likewise, I was really pleased and appreciated the emphasis on walkability and what I'll call bikeability, although word tells me that's not a real word. And just generally on sustainable transportation, even more holistically than electric vehicles or something. There's a lot more to it than that, and I saw that reflected in the plan. I will,
Let me,
Please.
related to Complete Streets, this was just like one of my follow-up comments. In the overall goals, it talks about green street design. This is such a nitpicky thing, and then, which is like GS, a lot is the green infrastructure pieces and trees and stuff like that. But when you go to the Complete Streets section, it doesn't mention any of those types of things integrated into the Complete Streets, and like the examples for traffic calming ones don't give examples of like bioretention and things that people are using as traffic. The bump outs can be bioretention, and that's used a lot in other places. So to use some of those examples even in there, like, because they're aesthetic, and they're traffic calming.
And that was, so it was in the goals, mentioned the goals, but not in the transportation.
Not in that, the whole, because there's quite a bit about Complete Streets and then the traffic calming, so to integrate.
Through the green streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think when the comments were being routed to staff, David, that was one of my comments. I had like 15 different comments related to either green infrastructure and the citywide green infrastructure plan, but just referencing it back. Now, that was several weeks ago, so I can't remember my specific comments, but I know I made some specific recommendations to tie it back in within the Complete Streets goals.
It's in the, it says green street design in the goal, but not in the rest of the stuff related to.
But to specifically reference the
Yeah.
citywide green infrastructure
Oh, yeah.
plan that we passed
Oh,
in 2023.
there you go.
That's where some of those specific, the
Oh.
comments that I made as staff, so.
That's a good idea.
So I can certainly provide specific examples as a follow-up, but as a general comment, you talked about business and sustainability sometimes being at odds. And I think it's really valuable to position sustainability in the context of economic development. And even, for example, on page 15, under the development section, that's the most significant section, as is understandable. But item number 5, this is just my note. Item number 5, under that section, I had a note, you could incorporate reference to energy impacts. So again, right, talking about Walmart being prevented from coming to this area because of the comprehensive plan, I think to truly achieve the goals of the clean energy plan, it's going to require collaboration with business and at the point of construction. So incorporating the concept of clean energy sourcing into economic development is going to be really key to actually achieving that long-term goal of clean energy by 2050. Because like 70+% of community-wide emissions are commercial and industrial. And if we don't consider it on the front end when they're being constructed or rebuilt, remodeled, whatever, we're never going to get there. So I can give specifics if that's useful, but as a more general comment, looking for ways to incorporate energy sourcing and economic development considerations alongside each other. Jenny's hand is up. Please go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up this similar topic. I wanted to bring up, Krista, I noticed in the future planning, I guess this is on page 94, for new growth, renewable energy will power homes and businesses is mentioned. So that was great to see. I don't know what kind of teeth it is put to that. I know zoning is difficult, or building codes perhaps to change, but I'm going to just suggest that at least resources for builders on building buildings to be solar ready, which would mean a little bit for the electrical capacity, the roof structure and conduit, etc. So I just suggest that, and also I'm really happy Krista commented that in order to meet the clean energy plan's goals, it is a must to think about the business side. Thank you.
Thank you. Super important, and the point, to your point too, with building codes, zoning codes, those kind of things, that stuff, well, and Wilson knows totally with the green infrastructure stuff, they can be added in there. I mean, there's always the plus or minus, right? We have that with those as well. But like roof structures, like you mentioned, a lot of people just don't think to build it to support panels or green roofs, even for that matter. We get a lot of calls with people saying, I want to do a green roof, and it's like, your roof will collapse if you try to put soil on it like that. But if they would have built it that to begin with, it wouldn't have been an issue. But there's the plus and minuses with all of that as well.
Yeah.
So that's a very good comment.
I know we need to move it along. It's getting really late, so please, people, jump in. Any other comments? I'm looking at the screen in case anyone online wants to come off mute. It wasn't reading yet.
I can keep going.
Great, go
Related
ahead.
to
Yep.
kind of.
1 second. Online, please raise your hand if you want to jump in as soon as Julia's done. Okay, please go ahead.
To build off the
Mhm.
economic development piece. So this is related to the vision statement. So, which is also, I do appreciate how it's coming along here. there is a section, it's the fourth paragraph down though, it talks about Green Bay being like the estuary and us being here on this amazing water resource. I do think it's a missed, before the previous vision statement had something about the bay and the Great Lakes in like the first sentence. And I do think it's a missed opportunity if we don't take this opportunity to use the river and the bay as like a like an economic driver in community development. I mean, this is what is happening in every single Great Lakes city, waterfront revitalization. And when I search, waterfront, there's nothing related to like, there's pieces later. There's a lot that has been incorporated later, but putting it again up front, like that is second to the Packers, our biggest economic and community asset for sure. So there's a lot of great stuff. You have the shipyard, city deck, there's the personality area I noticed is really focused on that.
The Bayfront.
10 years, you have a lot of there's a lot of opportunity coming up now too. And so really putting it as a Great Lakes, like we are a Great Lakes city is like really important, I feel like. And I mean, I just went to Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities conference with all the mayors, and our mayor was up there talking about how great the bay is. So like, and like we're a gateway into the Great Lakes. So we should capitalize on that from an economic development standpoint.
And we've actually received some of those comments already, although they don't want us to refer to us as a lake community. Lake. So we got the feedback the opposite, saying stop referring to you as a Lake Michigan community. You're not on Lake Michigan.
Like the public?
From public and staff.
Interesting.
That's
So-
okay, but we are still a
Right.
Great Lakes.
Well,
We are a
we
lake
changed it to
shore-
say,
we are a
we
lake shore
changed it
community.
to say where the bay, I can't remember how we worded it. It was like
That's really
the
interesting.
bay waterway to Lake Michigan and then to the.
What I
Woodrow.
think is
Kind of
interesting
thing.
is
Like, people get nitpicky.
recognize the Bay of Green Bay as Lake Michigan.
I mean, it is.
That they don't, and
I'm
it
not
is,
gonna argue with people.
that is part of the
I
Lake
know,
Michigan
I'm not gonna
system.
argue with people's perceptions, but I would just say we are definitely a Great Lakes city.
We definitely.
Okay, so we can say bay and how important the bay is, and we're an important Great Lakes city.
And I only say that because I said the same thing. I'm like, we are Lake Michigan.
Oh my gosh.
It was like,
Just checked all the boxes.
I don't envy your job.
well, it's.
I mean, please, someone else, back me up on this.
Yes, we are at Great Lakes.
We are.
We call it, we're a Great Lakes city. I mean, that's. We have an area of concern as unique to Great
Yeah.
Lakes. Okay, so.
Yeah, that's true, okay.
What else you got,
Focusing on the
Julia?
negative. I was gonna go, the only other thing, I was scared. This was just another little thing, I don't know if it's in there or not, it seems like it's the clean energy plan and stuff, but when you get to the housing, like, there's not really, keyword searched efficiency and efficient, and it didn't really come up within the housing. Section, and that's not my area of expertise, but it seemed like it's up front in goals, but not like into the.
It's not making it.
It's not in any of the
Yeah.
recommendations, so.
Well, a key part of affordability is being able to pay your utility bills and building from an efficient which goes back to building standards and building codes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Was that your last comment? Excellent. Any other commission members online have comments you want to weigh in on? I will also offer, if anyone wants to send me your comments, I can do a final email to you probably and
Yeah.
you pass them on. Kind of compiling any additional comments to provide to you by the deadline.
Yeah, and so the deadline is really for the commission. That'll be listed on our list of changes as the commission. But as a resident, friends and family, let everybody know, probably beginning of September, there'll be an open house. All those comments will get pulled in. We'll also probably have an online element to capture stuff like that as well. And we'll see, we're trying to see what we can do with social media, but it's difficult. Try to get comments on social media that don't start derailing all over the place.
Right.
But yeah, and so don't think it's just gotta be this commission. We will continue to take the comments all the way up through that open house when we have a final document. And then even after that, let staff know, I mean, we update these regularly. And again, emerging technologies and changes and shifts in the way people think about things. Something might not be important today. I'm not that I agree with this, but let's say, electric vehicles. Well, I don't care about electric vehicles. I like my gas. 10 years, there might be no electric vehicles is the way to go, and everybody's thinking that. It needs to be reflected as we do our updates. Again, I don't know that much about electric vehicles, but
Don't even know.
Generally, no. Okay, I just wanted to say,
And
Right.
this is more the
yeah, commissions.
commission feedback.
Final call? All right, feel free to email me if you have final thoughts that you needed to stew on. I know I'm gonna go back through it after the introduction, so thank you so much for being here and staying with us to this point.
I want to know what this mosquito bucket's in for this.
All
Okay,
right.
great.
I'm just thinking along.
Great. Next up, mosquito bucket challenge. I don't know what the mosquito bucket challenge is.
I'm gonna get to the next item, and there is some information in the item report for this, and we also have Green Bay Conservation Corps Maria Otto, who is still hanging out in the Zoom. If there are questions, when you reviewed your packet, do you have any questions on the bucket challenge? Maria, would you like to say a few words about it? If you're still there.
Yeah, I'm still here. Um, just finished eating dinner actually. So, yeah, so Mosquito Bucket Challenge was something that came across our page, just from the Homegrown National Parks. If you're familiar with that program, they offer a lot of education and different programs to promote, pollinator habitat and, creating really using private space in a really fun way. So this is something that they actually launched that we found, and at the Parks Department, we have a ton of 5-gallon buckets. Our Parks Department gets 5-gallon buckets for all of their lining for all of their sport fields and different things like that. So we use buckets. It's probably our number one used tool in the Parks Department for garbage, for hauling. So we kind of have this supply. And then we also have, I'm a little bit of a hoarder at the Conservation Corps. And so we get a lot of scrap, like chicken wire and netting. So a lot of the materials needed to create a mosquito bucket, we already kind of have. And the idea of a mosquito bucket is an alternative to using chemicals and fogging on like in your grass to eliminate the pest of mosquitoes. And so it creates a habitat for mosquitoes to lay their eggs, but by adding what's called BTI, which is a soil bacteria, it doesn't allow the larva to continue their life cycle and become full-blown mosquitoes. So a really easy way to eliminate the density of mosquitoes in your yard just by using a 5-gallon bucket and a few materials. And so we had the idea at the Conservation Corps to start a pilot project, just put together, 20, 30 kits that the public could pick up for free, and really partake in this bucket challenge on a national scale. And there's already a lot of education and videos and handouts, so it would be a very low impact way for the Conservation Corps to really kind of promote this program. We've just finished our planting season for the pollinator corridor, and so always looking at different ways to really promote alternatives to help pollinators in our area. So this was a very cheap and easy way for us to kind of try to make it even easier for the public to partake in these programs.
Thank you so much. I know I have one question. I had one while you were talking, which was, can we just get that BTI, the mosquito dunks, and not the buckets? Because I have buckets.
Probably at a hardware store.
You can get it on Amazon.
Yeah. and they're very, very cheap, and that's why we're able to offer this for free. So for a 5 gallon bucket, they kind of come in pucks, and you only use a quarter of that puck per 5 gallon bucket. And so we can get bulk for under $10. We'll have enough BTI for 20, 30 buckets. So it's really, really easy for us to do that. But I think the lowest that you can get is probably like a 2 or a 4 pack, which it would essentially give you 8 buckets worth. And you do have to resupply the BTI every few months to make sure that it's still doing what it needs to. But this was just kind of a starting point, and then hopefully, with the resources, that homeowner would be able to then go out and buy their replacement BTI for a very reasonable cost. And hopefully, also by promoting it, some people, like you had mentioned, can build these on their own, right? And they can make it a fun project. You can decorate the buckets, and there's a lot of very easy ways to do it as well. It doesn't really take a lot of material or financial input, and we're just trying to really get the movement going by creating some, and hopefully other residents will see it and be like, well, I can make one at home too.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Any other questions or discussion from commission members? All right. Well, Maria, I don't think that I'm gonna go get a kit because I think I can just do this at home, but I never knew. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, I also just learned and I thought it was very cool. So, just trying to get the word out. And I know we could have just, shared the post, but I think this is really like putting just a little bit of effort to show the commitment to a program like this.
Well, we really appreciate you dedicating the time. I know it's been a bit of a marathon tonight, so thank you so much for being here.
And Maria, your information is in the packet and it's open to the public, so there's 25 kits. In August, you said they would be ready sometime?
Yep. Yeah, we're finishing up assembling them this week and next week. With the weather being how it has been, it's offered us a little bit more time to kind of stay inside and get these projects done. So those will be ready in August.
Great.
And we'll make a press release and social media and everything once everything's ready for pickup with more information as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, I think we're on to the update on the feasibility study from.
Yeah. So the, just quick background, in April, looking at the feasibility of developing a food waste composting pilot program with input from the Sustainability Commission, was referred to staff with input from the commission. That was in April. So I'm here to give you an update of what we've been doing since that time. We've reached out to experts from the WD and from Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. So Mark Walter put us in touch with Ruth O'Connell, who's in charge of the organics food waste composting initiatives and programs for the state, to get her technical expertise. And she's put us in touch with other cities and counties that have programs. And this is all in your item report, but there's a lot of different models out there. We also looked at some of the resources from the EPA. Besides myself, we had Chris Pierlot, who is our director of operations for Public Works, attend webinars, and Mark also attended webinars as part of the service he's providing to the Sustainability Commission as well. And then we had more discussions, and at this time, to be able to launch a pilot for, say, curbside is not very realistic. We don't have the funding for it to do a curbside recycling program, and we haven't had time to apply for grants to be able to maybe get us in that direction at this point. So in speaking with the mayor and with other senior leadership, we felt like it would be a good idea to look internally and to look at pilots for our own operations from a staff perspective, not a public facing pilot. You know, where, you know, curbside or having a space for public to drop their waste products off would not be in the cards as of yet. So we spoke with Dan Ditchite, who was here, our parks director, and he suggested, well, first we talked to Bay Beach. And Bay Beach was, we sort of vetted that one out after discussions because most of the food waste there is meat. It's hot dogs, like partially eaten hot dogs and maybe a few packages of buns, but there's not a lot of green matter. So that one would, and what, Julia?
Not a lot of vegetables at Baby.
No, not a lot of vegetables at Baby. A lot of popcorn.
Might be fried vegetables.
You know, but so, and then, and actually the staff that we met with from Bay Beach, they had numbers of like what they throw away on a weekly basis during the summertime. And it really, it's not a ton. It's really not a ton. And anything that is still edible, they donate to, I know I'm gonna forget, but they do donate it to either St. John's or to the Salvation Army. It could be St. Vincent de Paul. I don't quote me because I'm going by memory, but those food items are donated. Which are usually like hamburger buns, hot dog buns, and other items that are still able to be passed along. So that was really good to learn that. I had no idea that we were doing that. And so that was great. He suggested we talk to the director for the wildlife sanctuary. So we had met with the wildlife sanctuary director, and there had been a composting program at one point there. For the food, there is food waste there from the animals that they feed. Now you'd think it would all be gone, but there is actual food waste that's left over from what they would give to the animals. I didn't get into the details like that, but so they would be willing to do this, but there were certain stipulations. It has to be rodent proof because that's why it was discontinued in the first place. There was rat issues. And that makes for other unsanitary conditions. So, and then we also looked at City Hall. And again, this is in the packet. We did some research, like how could we make this work in City Hall? So really the top two that are where we could look for our own operations would be Wildlife Sanctuary. So besides some of the waste that is not edible for the animals or whatever, they do have a 4K kindergarten program there, so there would be potential for food waste generation through the 4K program. I don't know how edible it is to be able to pass along, so that's a whole nother question. Right? And then if there is waste from just staff, you know, like bring your lunch to work, or you know, it's time to clean out the refrigerator.
You do a lot of events.
You know, and there's some events, so, but I don't know how many events or how they're programmed, but it was sort of directed towards like the food waste that's generated through.
The new facility and we hold
Yeah.
our work symposium there every year now.
Right.
That's catered in food. And
Yeah.
They do a lot of weddings.
So then the next step after that was we had one of our new interns in Public Works, one of our engineering interns did some research on composting receptacles that would be vermin proof, easy to use, and have enough capacity so that you can have one side that's cooking and the other side, you know, once it's full and it's in the cooking phase, that you still have another side that is able to load. So in the packet, you'll see what the top recommendations are for a tumbling style composter that is apparently very rodent proof. You know, I worked with our intern on this to be able to, you know, and the costs are in there. So where we're at right now with that is gaining additional input from you all, and then taking that back to the parks director and the director of the wildlife sanctuary in making this recommendation. So that they can put it into their budget to be able to purchase bins for composting. And we'll supply, there's a lot of different recommendations in there besides just the bins, the thermometer, the ratios that are needed. I just don't want to get into like the full, there's many pages in the packet with the results of what our intern helped put together. City Hall would be a little different. And I don't know if we're really ready to move forward with that one, but now knowing that Parks has a lot of extra 5-gallon buckets on hand. Maria, one of the suggestions is that we do recycling at each floor of City Hall with 5-gallon buckets. And that we have a place outside, because obviously we don't want to set up bins in City Hall. And then be able to use that finished compost. I'm going at this very high level, Mark, and I can see you rolling your eyes.
I'm just saying, 5-gallon is a lot of food waste to have inside a building for any length of time.
Well, no, it would
24
have to
hours.
be, it would have to be emptied weekly.
Oh, it would have to be
Oh, I was
empty,
thinking
all
daily.
in that, like daily kind of thing.
And then just a second, Maria. So
But anyway,
yeah. We would need champions of each floor to be able to do this. We would need buy-in from the Parks Department because Parks actually manages City Hall. That's, you know, it's a weird structure, but basically like from a facilities management standpoint, that's the current structure is at Parks. So we need to get their buy-in for that. I mean, we looked at doing, you know, potential like worm composting, but then we're like, who's gonna be our worm champion? You know, within the city staff,
Yeah.
with the current workloads and things like that. So then we really started focusing more on, getting something going at the wildlife sanctuary. With City Hall being a second choice. And, you know, not everybody works in City Hall every single day. So, you know, and I know the lunch I bring, I eat my lunch. I don't have a lot of waste other than maybe eggshells. You know, there's no. There's not a lot there, so I don't know, and coffee grounds.
Yeah.
You know, coffee grounds would be a bit you know, the brown versus the green, but. Yeah, so I mean, so we're looking at different things. So at this point, we're looking for more feedback, Maria. I think I'm done talking from my staff perspective.
Is she also city staff?
Maria is staff, she's our Green Bay
Okay, I
Conservation
just wanted to
Coordinator.
make sure
Yeah.
that it was okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my question before I call on her. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a really small thing, just to one of the points that you had made, Melissa, that I want to make you all aware of in case it didn't come up in your study. But the 4K at the wildlife sanctuary does compost 100% of their food scraps with the kids. Already, they do have 1, potentially 2 tumble systems right at their facilities. So the kids get to compost and then they use the compost. They have an annual family planting day and they also have their fork farms and everything. So the 4K is composting already at the sanctuary.
And they have tumblers?
Yep. Yeah, they have, it looks very similar to the top recommendation in the packet, but on a smaller, more like residential scale.
Perfect.
So, commission discussion on, results of the study. First of all, Melissa, thank you for all the work you and your team put into it.
it would seem that the proof of composting at Bay Beach would work. Wildlife sanctuary.
At the wildlife sanctuary.
Since it's already working, right?
Just do more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maria, go ahead.
Yeah, and then just a selfish little plug for the conservation course, since we operate the greenhouse that's at the wildlife sanctuary. And we grow annually about 5,000 to 6,000 plants out of that greenhouse. There would definitely be a high use of finished compost product at the sanctuary if we move ahead with that program. So don't know if that sweetens the deal for anyone, but it would be used holistically.
It sounds like there's a very good case to be made for recommending the wildlife sanctuary option. I will say, and I think it's probably a bit late to continue this conversation tonight, but I would like to maybe hear more about the residential composting option and what you discovered. Maybe in our next meeting, you can share a little bit about the results of that evaluation.
It's really more what other cities are doing and then speaking with staff, like the people that are like, that would be, we don't have boots on the ground people.
Capital investment is significant.
Right.
So it would be like we would need a grant fund, we would need a
Well,
grant.
the other thing, the other thing, and I didn't wanna collate all of the information because it just, I don't think we're ready to move forward on it. We need a very strong, at least probably 1 or 2 nonprofit partners that are already working in this space. Cause all of the other successful city programs, they have nonprofits that are helping collect, that are going there on the weekends with pitchforks and turning the pot. I mean, and this isn't like tiny towns. Buffalo, New York has like a fantastic program and they're about the same size as Green Bay. But it's that partnership, the nonprofit with the city. Very few cities that, at least the ones that I'm remembering from the different webinars that I was attending. It's not a city alone necessarily. It starts out with these partnerships and then it grows and then becomes more popular, and then funding, all of a sudden funding is, becomes available for it because it's seen as like, hey, we can do this, we can replicate this, people like this, people are using it. And it's less, all of the reasons, like the less tipping fees or food diversion. I mean, there's a lot of different layers of how you can do this, but that's something that I think would take a lot of, you need to have good support from strong community organizations.
And this can, I mean, we had talked about it probably a year or so ago that their USDA does have cooperative funding to even do feasibility studies, even do analyses of setting up a program for food waste collections and so forth. And that providing grants all the time. And then we had talked about that and staff basically at that time said it's a lot of work to put together a grant application.
Well, it's not just,
So
I mean, not having a partner in place that wants to, you have to have that together to make a really strong case for having a successful pilot program.
Yeah, there are, yes and no, let's put it that way. There are other ways. So I mean, I think that, but that's part of it, is just finding, putting together some type of feasibility analysis for that. It's not really a good term, but getting some funding. And I don't even know if USDA programs can still continue going forward, given the state
I don't know.
of federal programs.
I know people are still getting, well,
But I mean,
grants that were in place, like Eau Claire County, I was just on the phone with them today. They're getting their money.
yeah, Village Bay Harbor had set up a program, in Little Lake Harbor. They're doing it all internally. They're all doing it. They're doing everything in-house through a food waste compost program. And they got a USDA grant to help them kick it through. So there's some options out there, I think, that would have to be explored before you even get any farther down the road. Because for a city of Green Bay size, there is, no matter what you do, there is a pretty significant capital investment in trying to do a program if the city is going to be the full sponsor. Like you say, they're, working with, cooperating with a nonprofit of some kind obviously has a benefit, but there are some other models that might work. It's just, it's pretty intensive, as you say. You have to have a champion, and that's always a tough one.
So barrier number 1 is funding, but maybe a barrier right next to it, or number 2, but neck and neck, would be a lack of a champion. It sounds like there's maybe not a big appetite or resources, whatever the reason
I would
for not
say it's-
having an appetite at the city level, and then also not a community partner ready to collaborate with and plug in with. So even if we had the funding, we don't necessarily have the infrastructure. We don't have the infrastructure partly because we don't have the funding.
Right.
And it's just at this point, the feasibility study is, it's infeasible, and those are the two main reasons.
I would say yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again for all of the work you've done on that. Do you need a motion from us to move
No,
forward?
it was really just an update and then getting more of your input. And then my next steps will be taking this back to Parks Director and Wildlife Sanctuary with the information.
Excellent. Any other comments or feedback for Melissa? All right, again, thank you so much, Melissa. It's really great work and report. Work group reports, I have just one brief announcement from the youth engagement work group, which is that there's now officially a way that interested youth can participate in the youth environmental committee that Green Bay Area Public School student is leading. There's a link to the Google Doc in the packet. And mostly we just wanted a way to get this out into like publicly available information. So this was the path for that. I'll also make the announcement that that same group and that same student is coordinating a park cleanup at Newberry Conservancy on August 19th at 1 o'clock. And I just found that out a couple days ago, which is why it's not in the packet.
Can you repeat that?
Yep, August 19th at 1 o'clock at Newberry Conservancy at Preble High School.
And this is a what activity?
It's a park cleanup. So students and any other volunteers going through the conservancy, it's like a natural area at the school, picking up trash and cleaning it up.
And all are welcome?
All are welcome. So if anyone's interested, it can be like a corporate volunteer day, if your day job does that sort of thing. But wanted to share that. Maria, please.
Yeah, just want to, I know I've been in communication with her in the past, just want to remind her that that is city property and will have to go through the volunteer waiver process.
Well, I don't know if she knows that. She does have a teacher working with her. Would her teacher know that?
Uncertain, but it is city property and we do not allow volunteers on city property without a volunteer waiver, but it's pretty simple and I can have that drafted up very quickly if you send over a few details and I can get that set.
Great, great, great. I am going to email both of you. Thank you for saying that. All right, that's my only update. So with that, kudos to everyone for this marathon of a meeting today. And I believe that was the last item on our agenda. Our next meeting is August 20th, which is a Wednesday again, I believe. And with that, I think we will entertain a motion to adjourn. Excellent. Do we have a second? I'll second. All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
being-
Thank you guys.
Thanks, everybody.